Let me tell you something I've observed across dozens of privacy engagements, and it's a bit uncomfortable. If you ask 10 organizations for their data protection policy, 9 will send you a document within an hour. Beautifully formatted, board approved, sitting in a shared drive. Now ask those same 10 who owns it when it was last reviewed and which metric tells you whether anyone follows it. That's where the room goes quiet. The policy exists, the governance doesn't. Here's the thing. Regulators have seen 1,000 policies. What they actually ask for is different. Who decided this? Who reviewed it? What did you measure? What did you do when the number looked bad? And if your only answer is a PDF, you don't have a defense. So here's my question to you before we start. If the Data Protection Board walked in tomorrow and asked, "Show me how privacy decisions get made in this organization," what would you hand them? A document or a trail? In this chapter, we're going to build the machinery that turns intent into evidence. We'll cover policies that actually get used, how to structure the organization around privacy, which committees matter and why, the metrics that tell you the truth, and reporting that reaches the people who can act on it. By the end, you'll know how to build a governance model that survives contact with a regulator. Let's start. So, let's begin with a definition that isn't in any textbook. Governance is simply the answer to one question. When a decision has to be made about personal data, who makes it, on what basis, and how do we know they made it? That's it. Everything else is detail. Now let me show you why this matters. I worked with a manufacturing client who had a genuinely good privacy program on paper. Then their marketing team bought a customer list from a data broker. Nobody malicious, nobody reckless. The marketing head just didn't know he had to ask anyone. There was no forum, no owner, no trigger. The decision simply happened. So here's my question to you. Was that a policy failure? Not really. Their policy said exactly the right thing. It was a governance failure. The rule existed. The route to the rule didn't. I like this analogy. Think about traffic. You can paint beautiful lane markings on a road, but if there's no signal, no traffic policeman, and no camera, what do you actually get? Everyone driving how they like, quite politely convinced they're doing nothing wrong. Governance is the signal, the policeman, and the camera. Policy is just the paint. And here's the honest bit. Governance is the least glamorous part of privacy. Nobody puts committee charters in a keynote. But when something goes wrong, it's the only thing that separates "we had a process and it got an exception" from "we had no idea this was happening." So as we go through this chapter, keep asking, where does the decision actually get made? Alright, let's talk about policies. And I want to start by being a little blunt because this is where most programs waste the most effort. Here's what I see constantly. A client hires a firm, gets a 40-page data protection policy, everyone signs off, and it goes into the intranet. 6 months later, I ask a product manager what the policy says about retention. He says, honestly, I've never opened it. And you know what? He's not the problem. A 40-page document that nobody reads isn't a control. It's a paperweight with a version number. So let's think about what a policy is actually for. It answers a question someone has at the moment they have it. That's the whole job, which means the test of a good policy isn't length or legal rigor. It's this: can the person who needs the answer find it in 2 minutes and understand it without calling legal? Let me tell you what worked at one client. We took their monster policy and split it. One short policy at the top for principles, then underneath 1-page standards for the things people actually do. How to write a notice, when to run a DPIA, how to onboard a vendor, same content. Suddenly people used it, and here's the part everyone forgets. A policy needs an owner and a review date, not the compliance team, a named person and a date in a calendar. Because a policy nobody owns quietly rots, and you only discover it's out of date when a regulator reads it back to you. So look at yours honestly. Who owns it? When was it last touched? So we've got policies. Now, who actually does the work? This is where I want you to think carefully, because there's a trap here that catches almost everyone. The trap is thinking privacy is a department. It isn't. Let me show you why. Who decides what fields go on your sign-up form? Product. Who buys the vendor that stores it? Procurement. Who writes the marketing campaign? Marketing. Who configures the retention setting in the database? Engineering. Now count how many of those people report to the privacy team. 0. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Your privacy team doesn't process personal data. Everyone else does, which means a privacy team's real job isn't doing compliance. It's making it easy for other people to do compliance. Here's a model that works, and I've seen it succeed. You have a small central team that sets the standards and holds the expertise. Then you have privacy champions embedded in each business unit. Not full-time, just the person in that team who's been trained, who knows when to raise a hand, and who's the first call when a question comes up. I saw this at a large insurer. They had 11 champions across the business, their central team was 4 people, and their DPIA coverage was better than a competitor with a team of 15, because the questions reached them early instead of arriving as fires. Think about it like fire safety. You don't hire a fireman for every floor. You train a marshal on every floor and give them a number to call. So ask yourself, in your organization, who's the privacy person in each business unit? If the answer is nobody, that's your first gap. So, let's talk about committees, and I know, the moment I say the word, half of you mentally check out. Another meeting, another deck, I get it. So let me tell you what a committee is actually for, because there's exactly one job. A committee exists to make decisions that no single person has the authority or the perspective to make alone. That's it. If a decision could be made by one person, it should be. If it can't, that's what the committee is for. Here's the failure I see. A privacy committee is set up, it meets quarterly, someone presents a status deck, everyone nods, and nothing is decided. That's not a committee, that's an audience. Let me tell you about a client that got it right. Their privacy council met monthly and the agenda had exactly 3 items: exceptions requiring approval, risks requiring acceptance, decisions requiring escalation, no status updates. If you wanted status, you read the dashboard. The meeting existed only for things that needed a decision. 40 minutes, every single time. And here's the crucial bit about composition. Who was in the room? Legal, yes, but also product, engineering, marketing, and the business heads. Because a privacy committee made entirely of privacy, people can decide nothing. They can only recommend, and recommendations die on the way back to the business. So here's my question. Does your committee have the authority to say no to a product launch? If it doesn't, what is it actually doing? So now we come to my favorite part, and honestly the one most programs get wrong: metrics. Let me start with what I see on most privacy dashboards. Number of people trained, number of policies published, number of DPIAs completed. Now let me ask you something. What do all of those have in common? They all measure effort. Not one of them tells you whether anything is actually safer. Here's what I mean. I had a client proudly report 98% training completion. Wonderful. Then in the same quarter, 3 teams launched products with no DPIA. So what did that 98% tell us? That people clicked through a module, nothing more. So what's a good metric? A good metric changes a decision. That's the test. If the number goes red and nobody does anything differently, stop measuring it. Let me give you real ones. Time to fulfill a rights request measured from receipt, not from when someone noticed the email. Percentage of new projects that got a DPIA before launch, not after. Number of vendors processing personal data without a current data processing agreement. Number of systems with no retention rule configured. Age of the oldest unresolved grievance. Feel the difference? Every one of those has a name attached and an action if it goes wrong. Here's my closing thought on this. Vanity metrics make you feel compliant. Real metrics make you uncomfortable. If your privacy dashboard is all green and always has been, you're not measuring, you're decorating. So you've got real metrics. Now who sees them and what happens when they do? This is reporting, and here's where good programs quietly die. Let me tell you what usually happens. The privacy team builds a lovely quarterly report. 50 slides. It goes to a committee. The committee notes it. It's filed. Next quarter, another 50 slides. And here's the thing that should worry you. If you took last quarter's report and resent it unchanged, would anybody notice? At most organizations I've assessed, honestly, no. So, let's fix the thinking. Reporting has one purpose: getting a decision from someone with the power to make it. Everything else is documentation, which means you report differently to different audiences. Your board doesn't want 12 metrics, they want 3 things. Are we exposed? Where? What do you need from us? That's it. 3 slides, and one of them should be an ask, because a report with no ask is just noise. Let me give you a real example. A client's DPO started ending every board update with one slide titled, "Decisions I Need from You Today." Suddenly, the board engaged. Why? Because for the first time, they weren't being informed. They were being asked. Within 2 quarters, she had headcount she'd been requesting for a year. And here's the DPDP specific point. Section 10 puts the DPO's reporting line to the board. That's not a formality, that's the law giving your privacy function a route to the top that nobody can block. Use it. So ask yourself, does your reporting ask for anything? So, let's tie this chapter together. Here's the thread running through all of it. Governance isn't documentation, it's the answer to a single question asked over and over. Who decides, on what basis, and how do we prove it? Policies are only useful if someone can find the answer in 2 minutes and someone's name sits on the review date. Organization works when you stop pretending privacy is a department and start embedding champions where the data actually gets touched. Committees earn their existence only by deciding things, which means they need people in the room who can say no. Metrics matter only if a red number changes somebody's behavior, and reporting matters only if it ends in an ask. And here's the sentence I want to leave you with. When the board comes asking, they won't be impressed by your policy. They'll ask what you knew, when you knew it, and what you did about it. Governance is the only thing that produces that answer. Now, if you'd like to go deeper with a structured course on this topic, complete with role plays, quizzes, and practice tests, our Udemy course link is in the description below. Do hit subscribe so the next video reaches you, and you'll find the YouTube playlist link in the description as well. Click on it, and you'll get the complete list of every video in this playlist in order. I'll see you in Chapter 11, where we start building the compliance program itself.